Annabelle, I think we're good for you to begin.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for making time today to talk about how we can support more carer inclusive workplaces. I'm Annabelle Reid. I'm a carer and I'm the CEO of Carers Australia, which is the peak body representing family and friend carers in Australia. It's a pleasure to welcome you today. So I'd love to start off our webinar today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're meeting. And in Canberra, where I'm dialing in from, that's the Ngunnawal people. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm also really excited to welcome our panelists who will be discussing how carers are supported in their workplaces as well. So I'm joined today by Annabelle Dobson, Manager of Policy and Reform Team at Mental Health Carers Australia. And don't be confused that now that there are two Annabelles in the meeting, which to be honest is a rarity, we'll be using our surnames so we don't get mixed up. Welcome, Annabelle. And it's also a pleasure to welcome Tara Franklin. She's a support at home coordinator for Rhino Support Coordination and dialing in from Queensland. Welcome, Tara. I'd also love to introduce you to our team as well. So we have Jess Hanley joining us, who's the National Director of Programs, who will also moderate our panel discussion later on. Elise Morris, our stakeholder liaison for the Kiwi program, as we kindly call it, the Carer Inclusive Workplace Initiative. And Elise is the primary contact for this initiative. And also joining us is Melissa Champion, our events coordinator, who's capably moderating the webinar today, but is experiencing storms where she is in South Australia. So if she does drop out momentarily, we'll forgive her and understand we've got a weather event there. So I'll just talk through just a little bit of general housekeeping. This webinar goes for 45 minutes. I'll start off by introducing the Carer Inclusive Workplace Initiative and its benefits. We'll then have a panel discussion, so our guest panelists can discuss how they're creating carer inclusion in their own organisations. And then there'll be time for your questions at the end. Everyone attending is muted by default, but when we get to the Q&A session timing, can you please either raise your hand and you're welcome to unmute and ask a question, or post those questions using the Q&A function in the webinar. Thank you. Or I'll just check with Melissa where that Q&A is. Maybe you can just let everyone know where to find it. Oh, I can see it. It's at the top there. So if you just look along, it's next to the chat icon if you need to. And please feel free to post them in as we go and we can get to answering those questions later on. At the end of this session, we'll share some links to really useful resources about carer inclusion in workplaces. So please stay through to the end and take a look at those. They're very helpful. So why don't we now talk through our Carer Inclusive Workplace Initiative. So let's start by talking about what we mean when we use the word carers. So when we talk about carers, we're talking about people who support a family member or a friend with daily assistance. And those people need that support because they're either living with a disability, they're living with a medical condition, which can include a long-term health condition and terminal illness. They might be living with a mental health condition, a drug or alcohol issue, or they might be frail and aged. So when we use the word carers in this context, we're talking about family and friend carers. We're not talking about paid support workers or even people who undertake caring as part of a training or education course or doing it in a different type of volunteer capacity. There are actually 3 million carers in Australia. So, but many people don't really identify with the term. They just think I'm a mother or a brother, or I'm looking after a parent or a sibling or something like that, and they don't realise that word carer might describe what they're doing. So whilst we know from data there are around 3 million carers in Australia, we also know that data isn't always accurate and there are probably more. So why do we need to care about carers, especially in a business context? So I've mentioned there are 3 million carers, but that's almost 12% of the population. So chances are, if you haven't employed a carer now, and it's highly probable there's a carer in your team, in your organisation right now, the chances are you'll be looking to hire a carer in the future because they form such a large proportion of our workforce. We can't sort of ignore the needs of that user group. So let's talk a little bit about the Care Inclusive Workplace Initiative. So it's really around committing to recognising and supporting employees who are carers. It's about creating a more inclusive and supportive workplace to enable those employees, and it's about promoting equal opportunity for those employees too. So this is really important, and perhaps, I'll talk a little bit about what makes a care inclusive workplace, but carers do have often specific set of needs that can be quite easily met once we realise who a carer is and start recognising what they need. And this is really important, and it's really important for carers, and I'll talk about organisation benefits later, but many carers drop out of the workplace because of a big caring responsibility. Many carers can be caring for more than one person. In fact, a quarter of carers care for more than one person. About a fifth of carers care for 2 or more people. And that can add up to quite a few hours a week, many of whom are working more than a full-time job with their caring responsibility. So when we can create care inclusion, that helps prevent carers from silently quitting the workforce, or even sometimes reducing their work hours or reducing their career prospects because they think they can't manage the juggle. And to be honest, it is hard managing that juggle without support from your organisation. So what makes a carer inclusive workplace? What might the attributes of the care inclusive workplace be? So, we're going to talk in a bit more detail with our panelists later, but really it's a lot about flexible work hours and remote work options, which might give a carer time to take the person they care for to a medical appointment or deal with a crisis. Accessing additional paid or even unpaid care leave can have a huge impact on a carer, and it's really about how they manage to take that leave too. Is it easy for them to do so? Are people feeling safe that they can talk about being a carer at all? So they're things to think about. For usually bigger organisations, but sometimes smaller organisations can do this too. Enabling a carer support network where carers can, help each other, exchange tips and tricks, and maybe talk about their experience or feel like other people are experiencing the same thing can be extremely beneficial and help build that loyalty and connection to the workplace. And also helping managers of people to better understand the challenges that carer face so they can better enable them in the workplace. So what's the business rationale for, looking after carers in your workplace? Well, I've mentioned before that there are, 3 million carers in Australia, and that's about 12% of the workforce. So there's certainly a benefit to being able to include carers when you're recruiting. So advertising flexible roles or advertising that there's some carer inclusion can help attract carers to a workforce or make current employees who are carers feel closer and more loyal to that workforce. It also is about improving productivity. So carers generally tend to be, I call them time management ninjas because they have to be. They're people that are, adept at juggling a caring responsibility with the work responsibility and often family responsibilities and friendships and community contribution and a whole lot of things. So when a workplace can demonstrate that they're supporting those people, they feel more connected to the workplace, they feel more loyal, but because they can manage work around their caring needs, that there's a real productivity benefit from that too. Maybe someone, instead of a lunch break, needs a 2-hour break in the middle of the day for a medical appointment. They're usually able to juggle that really well and work out and round that. So businesses can gain a benefit there and stop that silent attrition from the workforce of people who are carers, help retain that talent and attract that talent by just using some really simple measures to engender care inclusion in their businesses. So What would be a really great idea is, instead of me talking too much about what the initiative's about, I think now let's go to that panel discussion and hear from our experts. And I'll talk to Carers Australia's experience as well, just to see how we can play through those ideas about care inclusion in the workplace. What are some practical ways that we can do that? So I'll hand over to Jess, who's going to be our panel moderator. Thanks, Jess. I think you're just on mute, Jess. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. There we go again. I was so focused on stopping the screen share, I didn't unmute myself. But thank you so much, Annabelle. I'm really pleased to introduce our panelists. So we have Tara from Rhino Support Coordination and Annabelle Dobson from Mental Health Carers Australia. Before we get into the panel discussion, it'd be really wonderful if you could both take a moment to introduce yourselves and the organisation that you work for and tell us a little bit about what they do. Tara, would you like to go first?
Certainly. So I'm Tara. I'm a support at home coordinator with Rhino Support Coordination. So Rhino Support Coordination is a coordination company for both aged care and disability. So we've been, I've been in my role in a very short time. So, but I've been working in aged care for over nearly 7 years now. And this is where we've sort of coming into increase aged care in the Rhino Support Coordination.
Thank you so much. And Annabelle Dobson from Mental Health Carers Australia, we'd love to hear from you as well before we get started.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you, Annabelle. And hello to everybody online. It's really wonderful to see so many people interested in this topic. So I'm really pleased and privileged to be here. My role at Mental Health Carers Australia is the National Policy and Reform Manager. If you think about advocacy and you think about the reforms that we would like to see government make with regards to family carers and kin, so the people who are supporting people that we know have mental health challenges, we have a huge task ahead of us by wanting to raise the profile of those people. As Annabelle Reid said, there's 12% of the population currently in a caring role, and I would argue that a large part of that would be somebody who's either currently or perhaps has been or maybe will be somebody who's caring for a person with a mental health challenge. This is a really invisible, we would almost argue, group of family carers who we feel need to be better recognised and more strongly supported. So we've got a unique opportunity. Mental Health Carers Australia was established as a peak by this current government, so they are listening to the advocacy positions that we're taking and the reforms that we're requesting. My job is to talk to government, so I look upwards, but to do that, obviously, I need to listen to everybody in the states and territories, to carers and families, and so we gather a lot of evidence and information to form our policy positions. So that's my role.
Thank you so much, Annabelle. It's really exciting to hear not only about your organisation, but what you're doing to meet the needs of mental health carers as well. Look, our first question is really quite broad, and we're going to hear from both Tara and Annabelle Dobson, but not from Carers Australia for this one, because it is what prompted your small business to become carer inclusive. Tara, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so Ryan, who is the director or the manager of Rhino Support Coordination, he understands that due to his own personal experience and in the industry that he works in, which is disability, that being inclusive allows his team to have that work-life balance, and he feels comfortable in being a carer and asking for alternatives, and whether it be for permanently or if it's just for a short period. So having those discussions with and allowing the employee to be able to have those hard conversations sometimes with that employer.
Yep, Fabulous. Thank you so much. It's great to have that lived experience in the business, isn't it, in terms of having that impetus to become care inclusive.
It is.
And, Annabelle Dobson, what about Mental Health Carers Australia?
Oh, look, Jess, I have to say it's a bit of a no-brainer for us. I know that sounds a little bit sort of plain and simplistic, but we are a lived experience organisation. We only have a small team of about 7 or 8 people at the moment, and we are all from a family situation, or we are part of a family situation where we've either experienced the role of being a carer or we are actually in a role of a carer right now actively. So lived and living experience. It was pretty clear to us from the outset that for us to be able to do our roles productively and to achieve the aims of MHCA, we needed to have this flexible workplace. We recognise that, carers are in the workforce whether you see them or not. And I think it's something that we need to embrace. It's something that I think we need to regard as a positive attribute in many cases. And so we were quick to make our workplace safe in terms of talking about caring roles. This obviously helps reduce the stigma, because we know that people will often feel that they can't disclose what's happening in their family life for fear of repercussions in the workplace. We wanted that to never be an issue in our workplace. And I'll talk a little bit about the policies that we've introduced when we get to that. But I would honestly say that it has been one of the most powerful and important cultural and I think leadership initiatives that MHCA has taken. There is no question that there is increased loyalty, less turnover, less presenteeism, less absenteeism, and we often feel that our work family is as important to us in that space to help us get through those moments in our lives that are challenging, knowing that we've just got that safety net in the workplace. And that, I would argue, is probably very unique. And I have never been myself personally in an organisation that has put so much emphasis on the value for not only the leadership team and for the business, but for the staff. So I'm very excited about what we've put in place, and I can definitely see the fruits of this as a policy that we've put in place.
Thank you so much, Annabelle. It's good to hear not only that it was something that the organisation was passionate about, but there's been great benefit from becoming care inclusive, and I'm keen to hear more as we go. Look, the next question is, what has been the impact of becoming care inclusive on both your organisation and your team members, your employees? Annabelle Reid, would you like to open this one?
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to. I think like both Annabelle and Tara, we've got an organisation that focuses on carers. So for us, it's a natural and an obvious step, but we also have many carers in the team. And I think, we're making it so that the team feel really comfortable discussing needs around caring. So if something happens, there's no stigma or problem. If someone goes, look, this happens, I've got an emergency, I need to go, or I'll be in late today, or if something happens, we just work with it because it's a norm for us. So I think building that sense of comfort where a carer doesn't have to worry about what will happen if they need a day off or a week off or they're late that morning is really important. It takes a big mental burden away. I also find that the carers in our team are really good at proposing solutions and workarounds. So if they need time, they usually come up with a game plan around how, I'll hand this over there, or I'll do this, or this will happen later, or move this around. So it's not, I can't think of an occasion where it's been a really big work interruption or problematic from the business's perspective either. So I think we kind of get people who are good problem solvers and critical thinkers because they're used to that. They're used to problem solving in a lot of contexts. So to be honest, it's been quite an easy and natural thing to manage. But I think the team, I can think of individual occasions where team members have expressed just real gratefulness for that flexibility because it's just made that day easier for them. And we've just taken away something that was buzzing around their head as an issue. It's just not an issue. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Tara, what about for Rhino support coordination?
Okay, so for Rhino, I'm actually the employee that is the carer. So from my point of view, having an inclusive workplace has just allowed me to be able to do my work and still be able to, pay the bills, because as carers, it's unpaid. And, you usually when you actually become a carer and you take that role on, you're also taking on more bills, and you need to work to pay those bills because nothing stops. The world keeps revolving around, and it makes it very hard when you've taken on that responsibility, but then you're then having to stop work to also to continue being able to work and being able to pay those bills and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and the person that you are caring for, and able to do that in the future. Plus, as when you're working, you might want to progress in your career. So, we're, able to still do that now. So I'm able to, if I want to work my way up in the company, then that's what I can do. I don't have to just stay in my little hole and, because I'm a carer, that, I shouldn't have to have that as my stigma. I should be able to build my career and build my life around both work and life. And that's what I'm really valuing in having the inclusive organisation that I do work for. So that's been the best thing that I feel has been a great outcome in finding this organisation to work for.
Great to hear, Tara. And I think your point around it's not only about being able to remain in the workforce, but having those opportunities to learn new skills and progress with your career is also equally important for carers. And Annabelle, how about for Mental Health Carers Australia?
Thanks, Jess. Annabelle Reid and Tara Franklin just picked up on two really important distinctions here, and that is the view of the, let's just say, the leadership team or the board, for instance, or whatever your executive level, governance structures are. There's obviously a view that they take to this. And then Tara has quite eloquently talked about how those supports help her as a carer. What I would like to reinforce is that carers are not a niche group. I think what we need to recognise here, they are a core part of our workplace. And so this idea that we think about carers significantly different to other people probably needs to be interrogated a little bit more, and we need to think about the lens or the biases or other issues that we may bring to this conversation. But I would say that a carer inclusive workplace, despite what some people might think, actually does retain talent. And I'll give you a very clear, strong example of this. As a manager, I have a team of policy officers. I have a caring role. I also work alongside another very high-level manager who has a caring role. And without these carer inclusive policies, we would not be doing this work. Now, this is a really important point that I don't want lost on employers. When somebody is attracted to a particular role, they're good at it, you recognise that they're talented at it and they are loyal, and that employee feels supported during challenging periods, they are, I would argue, far more likely to stay and contribute in a very meaningful way over a long term. Now, I would be quite frank here and say, had I not had the support that I've been offered through our CEO and my colleague, we probably would have had to leave the workforce. Now, that to me is not just an injustice in a way, it's a kind of a tragedy, right? I think we need to be quite honest about this. Caring typically, as I could probably rightly say, is a bit of a gendered still role. And so a lot of women are the ones who tend to have to step back. And that can be very detrimental to both their short-term, long-term financial situation, their emotional, social situations, relationships, etc. So sometimes when we think about this, we need to probably put that bigger lens of it's not just the right thing to do, it is the good thing to do societally. Now, I know I'm sort of getting a bit lofty here, but I'm just trying to set that context as to how important these initiatives are and these policies are to help people stay in the workforce, stay connected, stay productive, be able to support themselves. And finally, I think I would just like to say that I believe carer inclusive workplaces are more stable. I'll be quite frank. I think our team is the strongest team that I know, and I alluded to the reasons why before. But the core is about recognising that employees don't leave their homes and their lives at the door when they come to work. And a lot of us are working from home. I'm 100% remote. So that line blurs so often and so much. So organisations who respond to that reality with flexibility and understanding will really see the benefits flowing in both directions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Annabelle. And I would agree that certainly becoming a carer inclusive is obviously the right thing to do from a moral perspective for society, but also there's actually really significant benefits for the business in becoming carer inclusive as well, as we'll continue to talk through during this panel discussion. So, Tara, I was hoping you might be comfortable to answer our next question, which is, can you share a change or initiative that has made a difference to carers within your organisation, and what did you learn from it?
Certainly. So I've actually like my carer, as I stated. So I've got a daughter who has autism and type 1 diabetes. So for me, it is 24/7. I am not off any time of the day at all. So previously I have worked in another company that was classing themselves as family friendly. I actually thought it was pretty much, they were a bit flexible and stuff like that, but I didn't realise what inclusiveness was until I actually worked with Rhino Support Coordination. So that's the difference I've actually noticed. Things change, and this is how even in my role here, my interview for my position here was a complete change to my day. I had actually had an appointment with my doctor at her paediatrician. So we had started the day off. I had planned, I was dropping her back at school and I was going for the interview. Life happened. She had an episode and I ended up having to take her to the interview with me. So it was actually good in a way because they could see this is, and I expressed that this is my life. I'm not just going to turn off being mum once I come in this doorstep. So that was something I put on the table. I was quite happy to express that, I'm going to have days like this. There might be days that I need to sort of take off and things like that. And that was one thing that, I thought, okay, well, they know all the information now. So what are we going to do? In that, I actually got my role, which was fantastic. I was so excited about that because I'm like, okay, they've taken on board what I've said. So then now my daughter is actually not in school. I've chosen to do distance education with her. So she actually is in the office with me. So we actually have a set area for her. So she sits just beside me. We have her doing her schoolwork while I do my work. And if I have an appointment, I usually try and work that around my own sort of, if I've got time off or, an earlier start or, an earlier leaving or a later start. but usually my boss is very convenient. You know, I just sort of work my hours around when I need to sort of be there, and we work around that. But yeah, it's been wonderful. We've just made it through our first nearly our first term, so it's been an eye-opener, but I'm really glad that she's able to get what she needs out of life, and I'm able to get what I need, and it's working together. So having us both in that situation has been wonderful, and I'm so appreciative of that opportunity, because I know that there is companies that don't have this, and this is why I'm really passionate about people understanding being a carer. I've been a carer previously, so in my other role, I actually was caring for 3 people. So I was actually caring for my mother and my father and my daughter at the one time. So I do know what it's like to live that experience, and you don't shut off. And that's probably the worst thing, is you need your employee to understand not just the everyday, I have to maybe go to an appointment or I have to do, but the mental side of it, because you've got a lot of weight on you. And I know myself that there are days when I just need to say, hey, I need 5 minutes, or I need to have the day off just for me to be mentally right to get back to work, because I don't want my clients having someone that's not working on 100% capacity, because I'm in also a role where I'm also looking after aged clients, and that's where they need I have that lived experience, so I can compare with how their family members are feeling and everything like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. No, and that's a wonderful point you've raised in relation to your role. You've got you can empathise with some of the people that you're providing that care for as well, or supporting their loved ones. Annabelle Dobson, what is the change or initiative that Mental Health Carers Australia has made that's made a difference, and what have you learned from it?
Look, there's been a few. I think if you think about approaching this, the good news is that becoming a care inclusive workplace doesn't require complex or high cost solutions. It's actually the most effective changes are often just the simplest, and I would say that flexible work arrangements is probably the most powerful tool. We also have carer-specific leave policies. We've recently introduced, at the discretion of our CEO, we can give our carers additional paid leave. Equally important, I would argue, is culture, and I talked about that, but policies are not enough. You need, for people to feel safe, you actually need to create a psychologically safe workplace for them, where employees can have the conversations about their circumstances, as I said, without fear of judgment or career impact, because that's actually really critical, that feeling safe at opening the doors. I think it's really important to have clear communication, and this has to come from the top. We really do need our employers and leaders to be quite clear about what they feel and think about putting into place these flexible work arrangements and policies, and then they need to lead by example and show, actually get them down in paper, tell people how they're going to operate. These are all things that are low cost, right? Flexibility is about trust and leadership. It's not a financial investment. I think I would encourage managers or employers to sit with this, that you don't need to be an expert in caring. And in our situation, we specifically are talking about mental health caring, which, if you think about that for a moment, it can be very episodic. It's not linear. If you're caring for someone with psychosis or schizophrenia or something with very complex needs, there could be a whole lot of intersections with other things, which mean that you will get pulled away at times that would be impactful at work. So what we do is, as a team, if we know that somebody's been called away unexpected, or they're going to have some caring leave, we pull around together and we just quickly reprioritise anything that we have to deliver, anything that's important. We share the knowledge, which is another benefit that's come to us is this cross-pollination and better understanding across the business of what our work plans are actually trying to achieve, and so on and so forth. So we really do pull together, and you might think that that's a negative thing because it draws somebody away from their role, but it actually isn't. It becomes way more productive, we become more streamlined, and we're actually more effective as a team. So there's a lot to be said for carer-specific policies, flexible workplaces, culture and leadership.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Annabelle. Just conscious of time, we might jump to the next discussion because I know that Annabelle Reid has a lot to discuss with this particular question. And it's that what other systems or processes, policies or working practices have you implemented in your business to enable you to become carer inclusive? Annabelle Reid, did you want to lead this discussion?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Jess. And I think I've got to echo some of the things said, but to recap, there are those really powerfully important reasons about why we do this. We know carers are usually worse off financially because they drop out of work and the costs go up. So there are a whole host of economic benefits involving carers in the workforce, but also we tend to find that the mental health of carers when they're in the workforce is better compared to those who aren't working. So we know there are benefits for the carers, but in terms of the business, I know it can be really hard if you're a small business, we have 15 employees, to just make practical changes too. So I might just talk through a few just practical things you can do. And I'm going to echo what Annabelle said earlier about leadership modelling care inclusive behaviours. If you have leaders who are carers, they talk about it. I've got to go to a medical appointment now. I'm on the phone with the clinical team for, the person I care for. When those things happen, it's okay to say, I'm going to take 10 minutes to take this phone call. It's about the person I care for. And that makes it, psychologically safe, as you said, Annabelle, and Tara, you're reflecting this inclusion as well, makes it safe and okay for others to talk about it without stigma. Okay, this is something normal. A lot of people do it. It's part of life. We're just going to talk about it openly and work out how to deal with it. I also think something we've implemented, we've upgraded some of our policies lately to make it really clear about how you apply for flexible work or a different work circumstance. So we have a 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. workday and people can choose their timing. So we do know, sometimes carers might be online at 7 a.m. and then take a break in the middle of the day and pop back later. And that's fine. And in fact, you'll see a lot of our team online early because I think they like that flexibility, especially when we work from home. There are a lot of people jumping on early because it means they get a bit of a normal working day to go and do things. If you need to see a clinician or something like that does a 9 till 5, you need hours between 9 till 5. And we try to really clearly communicate how you can achieve that. So you might need a one-off, but you might need a permanent arrangement working around some caring needs. Or, so we don't know. Different caring roles can be different, but you can either set up a pattern of work that is a little bit different, or you can have one-off occasions where something happens and you need to go. Also, think about your support systems. So obviously, if someone's disappearing at short notice, how do you hand work over? Do people have capacity for it? So we're really trying to build up those systems in the business, like our CRM, using Teams, like we have a check-in, we communicate, I'm going to be out for 2 hours. So we're trying to use shared digital tools, and we actually push our team to use the same tools. So you're not trying to work across 15 or 20 different comms channels. But by doing that, it means we get some efficiency. When people have to go, they can go to the CRM. Where's the last conversation at? I'll pick it up. Where's that document? I can go find that procedure and I go do it. So whilst sometimes they're not the sexiest of things, getting people to write an SOP, it does mean another person can jump in if someone has to leave at short notice and they know what to do. And that's why we do those, less exciting moments in the business, because it means that the handover points are just easier and easier. And it means different people can pick up where someone else left off, which means somebody can leave the workplace to attend to a need. Just thinking through some other things that are really useful, I think often carers have to keep proving their caring circumstance, like medical certificates, you keep explaining. I mean, if you're caring for someone with dementia, it's not going to suddenly stop. It's not going to change. So it's ideal if you don't keep re-asking carers for proof of caring. And almost once they've described their situation, we end up with like a no questions asked. All the questions might just be logistics. How long do you think it'll take? Or is someone else worded up? Can we quickly give them that email before you go? Great. So we can carry that and you don't come back to a big pile of work that's just going to really stress you out. So I think it's just some of those simple things, none of them are big, amazing things. I'm talking about care inclusive when you recruit, you can put it on the job ad, or talk about flexible work. We've had some fantastic applicants that are carers, highly skilled, really great people you want in your business, and sometimes they're attracted by that flexibility and care inclusion. So we're also getting really good people for job ad recruitments, and often we'll get 300 applicants for a role. Like, we get a really good recruitment round, and I think it's because we do start to demonstrate that flexibility and care inclusion, and so carers who are really skilled but can't find a workplace that's a good match might be really attracted to that. So I'm looking at time, and I know we have questions, so I'll stop talking. But there's more.
Thanks so
There's
much.
always more ideas.
Thanks, Annabelle. And I think something worth noting as well, everything you've mentioned in terms of implementing is not only useful to becoming care inclusive, but actually benefits businesses in many ways. So when someone's just got normal annual leave, having a SOP ready to go and a CRM that's implemented helps them as well. It's beneficial on many levels. Tara, I'd love it if you could answer our last question, and that is, how do the e-learning and resources that are available on the Care Inclusive Workplace Initiative website help run and support coordination become recognised as care inclusive? And also you're on
Sorry,
mute.
I just realised I must have pressed the button. Sorry. I actually we are actually in the process of actually updating our policies and procedures to make sure that they do have that. So we are actually using that information to make sure that our policies and procedures are actually following that. Giving there's some great tips and tricks in there that we were really excited about. So I'm actually working very closely with my manager to get everything included in that, and there's some learning that we would like to do. So just having everyone aware of those sort of things is what we sort of want to do. It's something that we really are wanting to make sure that we've got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and make sure everything's nice and compliant. And having that information is wonderful, because sometimes you don't think of things, or especially for myself, I'm just in like that bubble of my own caring role, and it's not just about myself. I've got to we're looking at the broader range of of what we might need going forward, and making sure that we maybe even including, like Annabelle said, with having the inclusive on our application, for having more people out there to maybe broaden that horizon of who we actually capture when we're actually looking for new staffing and everything like that. So those kind of things are going to be wonderful for us to actually go forward and expand the business more.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks so much to the panel. That was a really useful discussion, and it's good to hear all the different perspectives in terms of what all of your organisations have been able to do to support carers and allow them to contribute so positively to the work that you do. Annabelle, I'll hand back over to you, and perhaps we just run through the how to become carer inclusive slide briefly and then jump straight to questions, if that works for you.
Yeah, sure thing. And I'll move quickly, folks, because I realise there are some good questions. So really, it's terribly simple if you want to start on the journey of becoming carer inclusive. You just register on the website, and you can Google Carer Inclusive Workplace, and our website will come up, but we'll share the link. So there's a simple registration form, and you push towards a self-assessment, and the self-assessment just walks through some questions around what you're doing now. There is some learning. So if you don't get a great result on the assessment, some people might already be running a fantastic, very care inclusive organisation, but if not, there are a whole lot of free resources. So PDFs you can print out and use to help inform a policy, and there are training videos so you can sort of deep dive into who's a carer, what does it mean, how do you start a conversation in a safe and sensitive way with a carer, and things like that. And then, when you redo the test, or in the first time you do, the self-assessment, there's a sort of score. And once you pass, you're gifted with a care inclusive set of, assets like logos and things that you can use to demonstrate to others that you are a care inclusive workplace. workplace. There is a next step if people are already care inclusive. Carers New South Wales does run a Carers Plus Employers program, and that provides formal accreditation. So if you really want to jump to the next level as well and get coaching and things like that, there's that opportunity as well. So maybe we just share the question slide. Let's go to some questions.
That we did have one. I'll just stop the screen share for now so we all don't have to look at the blue circle, but we can look at people speak. And there's a fabulous question from Julia in the chat, which is, what are some of the things you can proactively do to drive or start a care inclusive culture, particularly in large organisations where it can be difficult to shift the culture?
Yeah, well, maybe we can all give a very quick answer because I realise we're over time. So thank you all for sticking with us. I think it's about leaders in your organisation. If you have leaders that are carers, and they're probably there and they might not be talking about it, the more they can model the way, it makes it safe for the whole organisation to consider adoption, and that's changing culture. So I would recommend that leaders, like I said, open conversations, talk about their caring openly, and encourage managers or people managers, people working with other people, to allow those conversations to happen. So team members who are carers feel that they can talk about it, and just starting the conversation probably means you'll start getting to what that person needs by way of support.
Excellent point. And Annabelle Dobson, did you have any other suggestions for Julia?
Look, I think just reinforce to leadership, like I said earlier, carers are not a niche group, right? They're part of our core workforce. Ignoring their needs doesn't make the issue go away. It just simply shifts to costs like turnover, absenteeism, and reduced performance. I think it's really easy to argue. I think the resources, I'll be honest and say that the Kiwi resources really helped us reinforce that we weren't alone, that this wasn't a very outrageous thing that we were trying to do. This was actually about just doing the right thing. It was a smart business decision. There's no question that you can argue that care inclusive workplaces are more stable and more productive. So I think that's what the message you need to feed up to your leadership. Why wouldn't we do this? Tell us why wouldn't we, be more inclusive? Because to Annabelle Reid's point, we get over 350, 400 people apply for jobs in our organisation, and I have two of the most incredible policy officers that were just streets ahead, and they are both carers, and I employed them because I could just see the talent there now. I've never regretted that. So I think that's the key thing for us.
Thank you so much for sharing so passionately, Annabelle. I think the other thing I can add, Julia, is I know from some of our previous Kiwi webinars and events, larger organisations have also spoken about the power of capturing how many carers you have in your workplace. So whether that's something that can be included in a staff survey or whether it's captured informally, like it would be in smaller organisations through team meetings and one-on-ones. With your team, that can really help build a case for change, especially when you see the proportion of the workplace that are carers. Haven't had any other questions come through the chat or the Q&A that I can see. Is there anybody who's still here with us who has a question and you'd like to raise your hand and we can unmute you? I think potentially not. We will be sending this recording out as well to you via email afterwards. And if you have any further questions, Melissa shared some links to our website and our email address, so feel free to shoot through any questions that you have. Annabelle, I'll hand back over to you to close out the webinar.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making time and sticking with the webinar a little bit over time. I think we've expanded on the benefits of why you should become a care inclusive workplace. So thank you for listening. I hope it helped. Please cut and paste those links before you go. And thank you so much to my fellow panelists for joining. Really appreciate your lived experience insights. And thank you so much to the team for managing. So have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.